Chapter 1. It was the morning of the 20th of July 1900. A party of mail cars were lined up at the western entrance of Matejiang Hutong, a street in the east city of Peking. Part of the mills and cars extending to the alley running north and south along the pinnacle walls of the big Buddha temple. The cart drivers were early. They had come there at dawn, and there was quite a hubbub in that early morning, as was always the case with these noisy drivers. Nota, an old man of about 50 and head servant of the family that had engaged the cart for a long journey, was smoking a pipe and watching the drivers feeding the mules. And the drivers were joking and quarreling with each other. When they could not joke about each other's animals and the animals' ancestors, they joked about themselves. In such times, said one, who can tell whether one comes back dead or alive, or alive after this journey? You are well paid for it, aren't you? Said Nota. You can buy a farm with 100 taels of silver. What is the use of silver when you are dead? Replied the driver. Those bullets from foreign rifles don't recognize persons. Pung-tung, it goes through your brain cap, and you are already a corpse with a crooked queue. Look at the belly of this mill. Can flesh stay bullets? But what can you do? One has to earn a living. It's difficult to say, rejoined another. Once the foreign soldiers come into the city, Peking won't be such a good place to live in, either. For myself, I'm glad to get away. The sun rose from the east and shone upon the entrance to the house, making the leaves of the big coconut tree glisten with the dew. This was the Yao house. It was not an imposing entrance, a small black door with a red disc in the center. The coconut tree cast its shade of the entrance, and the driver was sitting on a low stone tabernacle sunk into the ground. The morning was delightful, and yet it promised to be a hot day with a clear sky. A medium-sized earthen jar was standing near the tree, which provided tea in hot summer days for thirsty wayfarers, but it was still empty. Noticing the jar, a driver remarked, "Your master does good deeds." Nota replied there was no better man on earth than their master. He pointed to a snip of red paper pasted near the doorpost, which the driver could not read. But Nota explained to him that it said the medicines against cholera, colic, and dysentery would be given free to anybody. There's something important, said the driver. You'd better give us some of that medicine for the journey. Why should you worry about medicine when you are traveling with our master? Said Nota. Isn't it the same whether you carry it or our master carries it? The drivers tried to pry after Nota information about the family. Nota merely told them that his master was an owner of medicine shops. Soon the master appeared to see that all was in order. He was a man of about 40, short, stumpy, with bushy eyebrows and pouches under the eyes, and no beard, but a very healthy complexion. His hair was still perfectly black. He walked with a young, steady gait with slow but firm steps. It was obviously the gait of a trained Chinese athlete in which the body preserved an absolute absolute poise, ready for a surprise attack at any unsuspected moment from the front, side, or behind. One foot was firmly planted on the ground, while the other leg was in a forward, slightly bent and open, self-protective position so that he could never be thrown out of his balance. He greeted the drivers and, noticing the jar, reminded Nota to keep it daily filled with tea as usual during his absence. "You're a good man," chorused the drivers. He went in, and soon appeared a beautiful young woman. She had small feet, and exquisite jet-black hair done in a loose coiffure, and wore an old broad-sleeved pink jacket, trimmed around the collar and the sleeve ends with a 3-inch broad, very pale green satin. She talked freely with the drivers and showed none of the shyness usual among higher-class Chinese young women. She asked if all the mules had been fed, and disappeared again. "What luck your master has!" exclaimed one young driver. "A good man always is rewarded with good luck. Such a young and pretty concubine." "Rot your tongue," said Nota. "Our master has no concubines. The young woman is his adopted daughter and a widow." The young driver snapped his own face in fun, and others laughed. Soon another servant and a number of pretty maids from 12 or 13 to 18 in age came out with bedding, packages, and needle pots. The drivers were rather dazzled, but dared not pass further comments. A body of 13 followed, and Nota told the drivers it was the young master. After half an hour of this confusion, the departing family came out. The beautiful young woman appeared again with 2 girls, both dressed very simply in white cotton jackets, one with green, the other with violet trousers. You can always tell a daughter of a well-to-do family from a maidservant by her greatest narrowness and quietness of manner, and the fact that the young woman was holding their hands showed the drivers these 2 were daughters of the family. "Xiao姐, come into my cart," said the young driver. "The other's mule is bad." Munan, the elder girl, thought and compared. The other cart had a smaller mule, but his driver had a more jovial appearance. On the other hand, this young driver had ugly sores on his head. Munan chose by the driver rather than the mule. So important are little things in our life, perfectly meaningless in themselves, but as we look back upon them in their chain of cause and effect, we realize they are sometimes fraught with momentous consequences. If the young driver had not had sores on his head, and Munan had not got into the other cart with a small and sickly-looking mule, things would not have happened on this journey as they did, and the course of Mulan. But as we look back upon them in their chain of cause and effect, we realize they are sometimes fraught with momentous consequences. If the young driver had not had sores on his head, and Munan had not got into the other cart with a small and sickly-looking mule, things would not have happened on this journey as they did, and the course of Mulan's whole life would have been altered. In the midst of the hustle, Mulan heard her mother scolding Self-Screen, a maid of 16, in the other cart, for being overpainted and overdressed. Self-Screen was embarrassed before everybody, and Blue Haze, the elder maid of 19, assisting the mother into her cart, was secretly smiling, being silently smiling, being secretly glad that she had known better than to overdress for this journey, and had listened to the mistress's instructions. You could see at a glance that the mother was the ruler of the family. She was a woman in the middle 30s, broad-shouldered, square-faced, and inclined to be stout, and she spoke in a clear, commanding voice. When everybody was well seated and ready to start, a needle maid of 11, whose name was Frankincense, was seen crying at the door. She was utterly miserable about being left behind to slay alone with Nota and the other servants. Let her come along, Mulan's father said to his wife. She can at least help fill the tobacco for your wad pipe. So, at the last moment, Frankincense jumped into the maid's cart. Everybody seemed to have found a place. Mr. Yao shouted to the maids to let down the bamboo screen at the front of their covered cars, and not to peep up too much. There were 5 covered cars, with 1 pony among the mules. The maternal Uncle Fen and the young boy led the party, followed by the mother, riding with the elder maid, Blue Haze, who was holding a baby 2 years old. In the third cart were Mulan and her sister Mo Chou, and the adopted daughter whose name was Cora. The 3 other maids, Self-Screen, Brocade, 14, and Needle Frankincense, or in the next cart. Mr. Yao, the father, sat alone and brought up the rear. His son, Ji Jian, had avoided riding in the same cart with them, and had preferred the uncle. A manservant, Nortong, who was the brother of Nota, sat on the outside in Mr. Yao's cart, 1 leg crossed on the shaft and 1 leg dangling. To the people who had gathered to watch the departing family, Mr. Yao loudly announced that they were going for a few days to their relatives in the Western Hills, although actually they were going south. Whatever their destination, it was obviously to the passers-by that they were fleeing from the oncoming allied European troops who were marching upon Peking. And so with the water and tar and crackings of whips, the party started. The children were all excited, for it was their first trip to their Hangzhou home, about which they had heard their parents speak so often.